With a sound of a strike, the man in the video falls straight to the ground, blood flowing from his head. The people around are scared but unmoved. This is a dispute that occurred between a passenger and a driver. This single hit changed the life trajectory of two families, and the cause of all this was actually a less than $2 fare. To understand the situation, we need to hear the driver's account. That day, Chen was driving his taxi as usual, and he picked up a passenger named Zhu who was returning from the county to a construction site. The distance was only 6 kilometers, so Chen didn't mention the price to Zhu, thinking that the standard fare of 10 yuan would be fine. However, when they arrived at the destination, Zhu thought that 10 yuan was too expensive. Normally, he would pay 6 yuan for this distance. Why was it suddenly 10 yuan today? He believed that the driver intentionally overcharged him, so he threw down 6 yuan and got off the car. Chen, being a person from the north, had a more fiery temperament. Seeing Zhu's attitude, without a second thought, he immediately chased after him to retrieve the remaining 4 yuan. This attracted a lot of onlookers, and the tension escalated. Neither side was willing to back down. One dared to shout, the other dared to fight, and that's how the tragedy unfolded. Accompanied by a sound of impact, Chen's voice fell to the ground, unconscious and bleeding from his head. It was at this moment that the foreman finally came to his senses, realizing that he had caused trouble, and immediately ran away. As the saying goes, you can't outrun the temple even if you can outrun the monks. The net of justice is wide and meshes are fine. The co-workers who were spectating dispersed, leaving Chen lying alone at the doorway. It was only when a passerby noticed the situation that they dragged Chen to the guardhouse and called ambulance and police. By the time the ambulance arrived, Chen, who was in a state of semi-consciousness, had awakened. Facing the police and doctors, Chen only felt a severe headache and dizziness, but he insisted on not getting into the ambulance. Chen claimed that he didn't have money and dared not go. He knew that ambulances were expensive, and he worried about the hard-earned money he had. He was willing to endure the risk to his life in order to save that money. Just then, Chen's wife rushed over. She continuously persuaded Chen that money could be earned again, but life is precious. Tears filled Chen's eyes, yet he still refused to go to the hospital. He thought about his child still attending school, and the family he needed to support. At this moment, the police officer stepped forward, declaring that the assailant would bear Chen's expenses. They assured Chen that they would apprehend Zhu, who had fled, and bring him to justice as soon as possible. Only then did Chen feel at ease and agree to get into the ambulance. With Chen's affairs arranged, the police officers began a full-scale manhunt for the suspect. By interviewing Zhu's co-workers, they discovered his hiding place, and within 4 hours they had brought Zhu back to the police station. During those 4 hours of hiding, Zhu was filled with fear and anxiety. He worried that if he had unintentionally caused someone's death, it would have been a major disaster. Upon being arrested, when Zhu heard the police mention that the person was at the hospital, he breathed a sigh of relief. If only he had immediately called an ambulance and compensated for the medical expenses when he injured the person, the situation wouldn't have become so troublesome. But hit and run would lead to additional charges and punishment. According to Zhu, he had been working at the construction site for over a year. Normally, the fare for the ride was 6 yuan. Even if some drivers demanded more money, once they arrived at the construction site, even if he didn't pay, they couldn't do anything to him. After all, the construction site was in a remote area. However, he never expected to encounter someone like Chen, who was reckless, and with many co-workers watching him, it was impossible for him to give money. Moreover, Chen was pointing at him and berating him, which made it even harder for him to back down. So, he struck Chen with the stick. Now Zhu deeply regrets his actions. He claims that he knew it would end up like this, and even if it were 400 yuan, he would have been willing to pay. But now, he wishes he had known better at the time. For the sake of a mere 4 yuan and his own pride, he almost beat the person to death, which was truly unacceptable. After a period of treatment at the hospital, Chen's broken skull healed to some extent, but it would have a lifelong impact on him. Half of his head became numb, and he often experiences dizziness and headaches. He has trouble sleeping and eating well. Half of his skull feels numb, and he frequently suffers from headaches and dizziness. He fears that he might develop epilepsy or similar conditions. Now, Chen can no longer drive. The burden of the family falls entirely on his wife. Chen will also have to take medication for the rest of his life. In the end, the police charged Zhu with intentional injury, and he was sentenced to 8 months in prison, with a one-time compensation of 40,000 yuan to the victim, all because of a trivial matter involving a few yuan. It escalated into an irreversible catastrophe. This serves as a reminder for everyone to stay calm. Avoid acting impulsively, as once a great disaster is caused, it's too late for regrets. What are your thoughts on this matter? Feel free to leave comments and share your opinions.